Hi, this is Scott. Sorry I haven't logged on in a while and done a video. Got a few things going. I'm actually going back to school and trying to learn drawing for one thing. Also one of my cats, I have more than one, perhaps I'll tell you that story someday, has gotten sick last week. It actually looks like she's having a bout with diabetes. She had it once before, a few years ago. Thought we were going to lose her then, but she's a trooper, and she came back and then she went into remission, something luckily cats can do, but is not really the case with humans. And she basically was getting real sick, brought her in, all worried about her, and when they did her blood test, she came back with having diabetes again. And go ahead and show her here. This is Isabella. She's feeling much better now. She's got her medicine, but she wants to be around somebody, and that's okay with me. So she's going to be sitting here on the side while I do my video. Today what I'm going to talk about is all of the new cameras coming out. This is, fix my angle here. This is just like an absolutely great time for cameras because, especially if you're like me, the cameras I prefer are what are called hybrids. They not only shoot good stills, but they also do really good when it comes to video. And I previously had Panasonic, which is really great, but on the still side of things, I really wanted a little bit bigger sensor than 4/3. I just kind of felt I was, certain things I wanted to do were becoming limited by that sensor. Now Panasonic dealt with the low light capabilities. They came out with the GH5S, but I'm really of the attitude of I'm looking for one camera to rule them all, as I like to call it. That really is just a great stills camera and also a great video camera as well, so I can just concentrate on collecting one set of lenses for that particular model. And I'm a little bit in flux, as a lot of you should know. I own Fuji X-T20 because I kind of figured that was the best bang for the buck. But this year, we are going to see things from Fuji. We're going to see a new Nikon come out that's mirrorless. I think mirrorless cameras lend themselves really well to being hybrid cameras. And then Canon is also promising us something in the future. Now I'll go into some rumored specs that are coming out and some details about each to kind of give you an idea of just what's coming. And my main thing is, don't buy a camera yet. If you're thinking at all about changing, just hold on, because there's stuff out there coming right around the corner. In fact, this week we should be hearing from Nikon. But give me a second and I'll come back. I want to make sure that Isabella's got everything she needs. It's kind of funny. I'm looking at my monitor and she is just as equally interested in what my monitor's doing, weren't you? But I'm going to make sure she's got everything that she needs, and then we're going to talk about some of the rumored specs that are available right now through the rumor sites. So be right back. Okay, sorry about that. I'm back now. I wanted to go over some of the specs that we've been hearing about. Actually, as of tomorrow, we'll know exactly what the Nikon specs are, but let me go over those first, because I think that's been really the most talked about, because this is the first time we're seeing the likes of the big two, Nikon and Canon. This is the first one. Let me straighten that out there. This is the first announcement we've got. I'll go ahead and talk about Canon. Canon says one's coming. We don't know any specs. There's no rumored specs, but I'm sure they're working hot and heavy to get something out. And I guess I should go over history a little bit, because you might be wondering, why now? And I wonder too, and all I can really do is speculate on to why now. And I think it's because both Canon and Nikon were hesitant, especially being well respected in the sports field as far as cameras go, where speed, no finder or minimal finder, blackout type of things were so important. And one of the problems with mirrorless cameras, although to me they're so wonderful in so many ways, I've been using them ever since the Olympus EPL2 and fell in love with it. And then when I got a Panasonic GH2, even though that EVF was not the best in the world, there were so many things that I just loved about it. You know, it's like our cameras can focus in light that we can't. We can barely see the things inside of our mirrored finders, our cameras that have mirror boxes. But the mirrorless cameras essentially, you know, put up the gain, and you can set it to either show you exactly what you're going to get, or you can actually have it give you a brighter presentation of what you're looking at. So now you can focus and set up your composition, and then when you take the picture, it will adjust it and make it as it would be as your exposure is set, but you can actually look at it brighter than your actual exposure. Hopefully that made sense what I said, because I'm unscripted, so sometimes it doesn't necessarily come across the best. But essentially, when we look at Canon and Nikon, being that speed and being able to see right up to the moment that you take that picture is so important in the world of sports, I think they have been very hesitant to get away from the mirror box, because that's what they made. But I don't think they're necessarily going to be behind, because it's one of those things, all they need to do is decide to do it, and they have enough R&D, and you know, in the back rooms of these places, they don't ignore technology that they're not using, so they're keeping up on it. And I think they finally looked at it and said, especially with the fact Sony is out there, and Sony has been doing mirrorless for a while, and they saw with essentially the Sony A9 that now we had a virtually blackout free, or as close to blackout free as we can get, that EVF is updating fast enough that it is usable as sports, in sports, so you can catch the moment. On top of that, some of these cameras actually, like Olympus, and Sony may do it, I don't know all the specifics, but you know, you press that shutter, it actually grabs a few frames beforehand, and that was also kind of a compensation for the fact that EVF might be a little bit behind. Now, we have EVFs that are really just pretty almost instantaneous. The lag is very, very low, and it is now usable. And if they're good enough this year, they're even going to be better next year. And let's face it, the mirror box, that whole thing is a mechanical. And that's when, you know, when they talk about the shutters and things, that's the things that are most likely going to break. You know, they're going to have wear and tear. You know, just the fact that mirror is flapping around in there is going to cause wear and tear. And again, they've been building them for years. They've made them super rugged and everything else. But geez, if you can get away from that, why would you not want to? But previous to this, because of the lags of EVFs and stuff, I think Canon and Nikon said that it was pretty much, you know, not their game, not for their top cameras. But now the technology has reached a level that they can embrace it. And I think that's just what they're going to do. And I think, I mean, as more and more people find out the benefits of having an EVF that's potentially showing you exactly the picture you're going to take because of the settings you've set on the camera, or if you change it to the function so you get to see a brighter view than you'd actually get for your exposure. Once people see those benefits, I think they're just going to absolutely embrace mirrorless cameras. there's always a few die-hard old dogs that just don't want to give up and go to the new way, and hopefully for a while they'll still be happily able to get their mirrored cameras. But I think eventually it's going to get away from it. It's going to save money. Because if you have to put in those mechanical aspects, it costs money. And so this is a way to potentially bring the cost of cameras down. Something cameras companies seriously have to look into, because not as many people are buying cameras as they used to. You know, everyone loves their phones and it's always there and you can take pictures. So the camera companies have had to go against you know, a tide of things changing, and as those camera phones get better, it's going to put more pressure on them. So if you're sitting there trying to attract somebody in, you know, you want to attract as many people as you can to keep your costs down. And well, not so much down as spread across. You know, if you only have 100 people buying your cameras versus 100,000, those R&D costs are going to be really high on the camera that only sells 100 units. So obviously, you want customers, and in order for it to look attractive, one, it has to be better than a phone, and two, it just can't be that terribly expensive, because at some point people are just going to start to resist. And even at the professional level, there's been so much pressures put on photography that it's hard to make top dollar in that field. Of course, there's always, you know, the superstars that make ridiculous amounts of money, but for the most part, you know, most working class photographers don't have a ton of money to spend, because everybody's just pushing on them to lower their prices, or going, you know, I'll have my cousin do it. Because regrettably, because when cameras got as good as they have gotten, mediocre photographers no longer had to think about the hard stuff, and as long as they have a reasonable idea of composition, a lot of people can take a pretty nice photo these days with the tools we have. And you know, that hurts the pro, because it, you know, that knowledge people used to pay for is now built into the camera. So, you know, they got to keep their costs down. So I think the mirror box is eventually going to be history, and we'll talk about it, you know, later from now. But it's going to go the way of the dodo, whatever. You know, there's just going to be no reason for it in the evolution of cameras going forward. So Nikon and Canon said this technology has reached a level that it will deliver to our customers what they need. And they also had Sony showing them that their customers are ready to embrace this type of technology, because they've lost some customers to Sony. So they have to now come in with their muscle and their knowledge and their years of experience, and you know, they have to sit there and do battle with Sony. And again, you know, a lot of people are going, Sony, you know, they've been doing it for so long. But, you know, Nikon and Canon have been doing cameras for so long. Their camera divisions, you know, have a lot of money to spend on R&D. And like I always say, it's, you know, especially Canon. If tomorrow they want to make a mirrorless camera to beat everybody, I'm sure they could. It's a matter of if the executives at Canon have truly decided that they're not going to let Sony have this market, that the time has come and they're going to put out a professional level mirrorless camera. I'm sure it's going to be pretty amazing. I think a lot of people have, you know, like forgotten, you know, a lot of people have really been kind of beaten on Canon because they've been kind of holding back. I think that's really more it. They've been holding back. It's not that they couldn't do things, they just weren't doing them. Because Canon, they used to be a great innovator. You know, my first digital camera, I believe was the D30 or the 30D. They switched their letters around at some point. And I think it only had like 4 megapixels or something, but it was great. And basically when the first digital cameras came out, they were all ASPC-like models, less than full frame. Because there was a huge complication with actually making a full frame sensor that didn't have defects. In fact, I think the 1DS, which I also owned, and forgive me if I'm wrong on this, was actually made from 2 separate sensors that were then brought together and made a full frame, and that was the first full frame camera, but it was very expensive to produce and do that. Obviously, now that we're having all this resurgence of full frame, because the technology has gotten good enough that they're obviously producing those full frame sensors a lot more economically than they used to. Because what it comes down to is if they have defects, you got a full frame sensor, it's more likely a defect might fall on that sensor, and that sensor gets thrown out the door. So as I was saying, there's advantages to ASPC cameras as well. Like I think right now, they'll still make better hybrids. I think it'll be unlikely that we're going to see in this the cinematography type range to get a 4K 60 frames per second out of a full frame sensor. I think it's just a little bit harder now, or it obviously can be done, but it's more expensive. It's more processing power, potentially more memory, so it's a higher cost. And we know that, like the Panasonic, the GH5 and the GH5S, they both can deliver 4K 60, and I don't think there are many other cameras in that price range that can. And I think a lot of that is because the Micro Four Thirds sensor being that much smaller, it's easier to get that information off, to get it off at 60 frames per second. So I think we're going to see something wonderful in the ASPC, and that to me is what I think is going to be the potential for best hybrids. And one of the ones coming is the Fujifilm XT3, the replacement for the XT2. And if you remember, they had the XH1, which I have been critical of, and I wish they had waited to put in the processor and sensor that's in the XT3, because when you let me read these rumors of what's going to be in the XT3, you're going to go, oh my god, why didn't they wait? Which was exactly what I was thinking all along. So for when the recent one, Fuji rumor said it's going to have a headphone jack. Well, that's fantastic. It should have been in the XH1. It's not going to have a selfie screen, so some people don't like that, but there's a lot of cameras that have chosen to not have those kind of flippy screens. I'm a little bit agnostic on it. If you can put it in and it doesn't create a problem in any other way, please do it. In fact, Fuji in the XT100 did like one of the ones that I like the absolute most, because it traditionally just tilts up or tilts down without swinging out. You don't have to swing it out to tilt it up or tilt it down. But then it also flips to the side. That, to me, is like the best of both worlds, because when I had Panasonic, I like to have the flippy screen on those few occasions when I wanted it for different reasons, but I hated that it had to be out at the side for me to tilt it up or tilt it down, because now the camera kind of got so much bigger and was so much more obvious. So I really admired basically having that little tilt screen. To me, it was kind of like using an old medium format camera and just looking down at that screen. But yeah, that's me showing my age or whatever. But back to the rumor mill. They're going to have phase detection coverage over the entire sensor. People familiar with Fuji know that they did not have that, and hopefully we'll see some improvements. They say they're going to improve the face and eye detection, so great there. If they can get that to Sony levels, everyone will be thrilled. They're going to have 425 autofocus points available, and it will be available in continuous autofocus as well. So kudos there. They're supposed to have improved low light. Some people were wanted to see that be a little bit better. It didn't affect me too much, but hey, get everything we can. Now, video specs. This is where I go, why did you not wait and come out with the XH1 with this stuff? It's going to be 4K at 60p. That to me is big. That's what's going to potentially make this Fuji still very interesting, even though we're going to see Nikon and Canon come out with cameras, because I don't think those full frame cameras are going to be able to pull off 4K at 60 frames per second. So kudos. I hope this is true, because I am a fan of Fuji. I'm not a fanboy. I'm willing to be critical of them, but I am a fan, and I really hope this is true, because I think it'll really solidify them in the market and maybe give Panasonic something to worry about. They're going to have zebras, supposedly, which they did not have before, and I lamented that. They're going to have 10-bit 422 internal. Again, very big. Panasonic was the only one who had those kind of video specs. So again, Fuji, if that's what you're coming out with, great. No new film simulations, but they came out with a turn of this year, and I'm a fan. Some people aren't of the film simulations, so no problem there. A base ISO of 160. I know a lot of people want to see 50 or 100, whatever, but in digital that doesn't seem to be that prevalent, that there's losses when you push it that low. Now they say it's going to cost less than the Fuji X-T2, which was $15.99, and I believe the X-T1 when it was released was $12.99. So there's been some speculation they might reach the X-T1 price. That would be incredible, and that would, with these other specs, would make it an absolute bargain. It supposedly will have 20 frames per second. I'm sure to some that's very meaningful. To me, not so much. But it's going to supposedly have a 26 megapixel X-Trans sensor. Some people like the X-Trans, some people do not. Some rumor that it could be a stack sensor. Supposedly it's going to be pretty good. I would hope that it is going to show a lot of DR and other advantages over the previous sensor model. My camera decided to focus on the back, so hopefully an X-T3 won't do stuff like that. It's not going to have IBIS, and that's, some people are really upset about that. You know, I've lived without IBIS on my X-T20, and because I used to have Panasonic before I adopted my Fuji camera, and I really liked IBIS. It's kind of regrettable it doesn't have it, but you know, they have the XH1, which does have IBIS. I hope they don't wait a long time to put this processor and this sensor into the XH1 body. I think it'll make some people unhappy who bought XH1s, but I would love to see the XH2 come out right alongside the X-T3. Again, you can listen to my rant about the XH1 and what it didn't have. Supposedly it's going to be shipping in October or November. It's going to have a touchscreen, which to some people, they probably go, what? It didn't already have one? My XC20 has a touchscreen. I love touchscreens. The XH1 has one, but there was some reports of it being a little laggy. And the last thing is they're supposedly going to get better performance out of the battery. I think it may be a dual thing. I think perhaps the processor is going to be a more efficient processor. My glasses are really messing up my focus. I can see it right here. But hopefully they'll have some improvements in the battery. Take the glasses off, this will help it. Improvements to the battery itself, and some improvements due to the processor probably being considerably more efficient. So the X-T3, as the rumor mill has it, sounds really interesting right now. Now on the other side, we have Nikon. Hi again. I had put up this video, but I saw I made a mistake for some strange reason. I thought one of the new Nikons was actually APS-C. It's not. They're both full frame, which kind of goes with all the stuff I was saying about full frame. So with that in consideration, and now that they've actually announced it, I'm reposting the video and posting it with the actual Nikon specifications. So of course, like I said, both of them are full frame cameras. We have the Z7 and the Z6. Let's go ahead and talk about the Z6 first, because it's pretty similar to the A7. I think it's the actual processor and everything. So it's 5-axis sensor-based stabilizer. As far as the all important top rate in video, it is UHD, 144 megabits per second, and that'll go up to 30p. So no 60p. And this is kind of the case. I really just don't, I think at this particular time, they're gonna have a trouble hitting 60p with full frame sensors. Now, like I said, there could be some gotchas, but currently the rumor mill says the XT3 will have 4K 60p, or 60 frames per second. So that's going to give them an advantage. And like I said, it may be the better choice in a true hybrid. But if you are fond of full frame, then you can now buy a Nikon that is very similar to the Sony A7 III. I'm sure Nikon doesn't appreciate me saying that. 273 phase autofocus points, 12 frames per second serial shooting, 3.2 inch tiltable, 2.1 million dots touchscreen, 3.6 million dots OLED, dual axis electronic level. It only has one XQD memory slot. Some people may be offended by that. It's got a headphone and microphone ports, as well as HDMI and USB-C, built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and an EN-EL15B battery. And a weather-sealed body coming in at 675 grams, and a US price of $1995.95. So again, Fuji's got some potential advantages against that spec sheet, and the fact that we're still talking about $2,000 body. So this one is really, to me, is the nose-to-nose matchup with the Sony, and we'll have to look at some other reviewers who actually get to see the cameras to see how they actually pair up against each other. I can say one thing, looking at it with that big lens mount, I think some of the complaints that come out about the Sony about not enough space on the side between the lens and your fingers, for those people with huge hands, you're going to have the same problems potentially on the Nikons here. So that's the inexpensive model, we might say, from Nikon. No knock your socks off specs, I'm afraid to say. And then the other one is the Z7, which I guess we would pair that in conflict with the Sony A9. It's got a 45.7 megapixel full frame CMOS sensor. It's got the same XP6 as the Z6 has, 5-axis sensor stabilization. It will do 3840, 2160, 30p, so again UHD at 144 megabits per second. So that is the same as the Z6, and so nothing particularly outstanding there either. It has focus peaking in zebra, so does the Z6, which a lot of us really want that. It has 493 phase autofocus points, so that's nice. It has 9 frames per second serial shooting, so again, it's moving more megapixels, so it is a little bit slower. What's that? 3 frames per second slower than the Z6. I believe the screens look the same. Same dual access level, same XQD card slot. Again, it appears that there's only one card slot, so people who are really dependent. Now, I'll interject my own personal experience. I have to consider myself lucky. I have never had a problem with my losing data on disk. I usually try to buy reasonably expensive, high quality, whatever, SD cards, and they have served me well. And I haven't had one go bad, but I realize some people, you know, work them harder, and there is some potential there. So not having dual slots to some people, especially like wedding photographers, I would think is potentially going to make it less desirable versus the Sony with 2 slots. But it does have a headphone, microphone, USB-C, and HDMI ports, like the Z6, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, same battery, weather sealed body, 665 grams. So all the other statistics are pretty much dead on between the Z6 and the Z7. Just essentially a bigger sensor inside of the Z7, and a hefty price tag to go along with it of $3,399.95 for body only. So again, Nikon is coming out with nothing particularly groundbreaking here, but things that look like they'll directly compete with Sony. So I would think that that would make a lot of the Nikon people happy, because if you were looking for a mirrorless camera or you were thinking about changing, you probably don't have as much reason to have those spots anymore, because along with the they're going to have an adapter, so you'll be able to use your regular Nikon lenses with them. So if I was a Nikon person, I would probably stick with it. There's nothing to draw you away necessarily at this point. So there you have it. Very exciting future in 2018. If I was you, I wouldn't buy anything just yet. I'd let all these companies put out there what they got. Even there's some rumors out there that Olympus has something under their hat too. No real ideas what it's going to be, what it can or can't do, but it's coming too. So as much as I like my Fuji and the X-T3 looks really good, I think I might want to wait and see what Canon's going to be throwing at us. We'll know what Nikon is offering us, and I might even wait around to see what Olympus has to offer. So as far as shopping, no matter what brand is your favorite, or whether you're shopping around for a new one, this is a great year. We got some fun stuff coming out. So I hope you appreciated my video. Hopefully I didn't ramble on too much for you. I hope you appreciated seeing Isabella there. If you would like to donate, it would certainly help, because love Isabella, but boy, sick cats cost money. And now she's going to be insulin dependent for I don't know how long, but oh well. And if you hate cats, then oh well, you can think what evil thoughts you want to. But I have a donation down below if you'd like to help out, or if you like my videos at all and you'd like to help out. As is, I make no money doing these. I'm just trying to put something out there, and it's also good practice for me. So have a great day, have a great year. I'll see you and talk about things to come, and I got some Fuji X-T20 videos coming out to talk more about the specifics. I think hopefully I'll get it out next week. I'm going to talk about the film simulations and actually show some samples and show what I've picked as my favorite simulation, which you're looking at now in video, and how I set my camera up. So see you next week, and have a great day. Bye.